Hello, y'all. Welcome to my channel, Daisy Dice. I'm so nervous. This episode is going to be about Roque Dalton, which is a person that is a huge deal in El Salvador, and it's gonna be a huge deal to you now if you're watching this. I have my babe in front of me. You wanna introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Will.
Let y'all know this was inspired by I'm from El Salvador and my partner is un gringuito, un blanquito. I think it was just gonna be fun me learning about Salvadorian culture and then sharing it with my partner. Because even though I'm from El Salvador, I was raised here in the USA, so I'm learning as much as my babe is learning. And I might stare at the bottom because I have a lot of information in front of me and I wanna give Roque justice with actual facts that I have. So, Roque Dalton. Have you ever heard of his name?
No.
Have you ever heard of Dalton? The name Dalton?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Just from like some of our recent conversations.
Okay, so his full name is Roque Antonio Dalton Garcia. So let's start with his parents. His parents are Winnow Dalton and Maria Garcia Medrano. You could kind of tell who's the American parent and who's the Latino parent there. His mother, Maria Garcia Medrano, was a Salvadorian native. She was a nurse and she worked really hard. And the father, Winnow Dalton, he was born in 1894 in Tucson, Arizona. And he signed up for the draft in Prima, Arizona and served 1 year as Major Cavalry Regiment in Mexico. I don't know what that means, but he was in the army. He went to Mexico and he arrived in El Salvador early 1920s. Early 1920s, he meets and marries this woman named Ida Ulloa. And he struggled because she was actually pretty wealthy. Her family had a large farm, so he was like, I'm on this. He dedicated his whole life to agriculture. One day though, someone tries to assassinate him. I don't know why. Maybe there was some correlation with the army. I think this is just me assuming. But he almost gets killed and he has some wounds. And nurse Maria Garcia Medrano comes to nurse him back to health. And in the midst of that,
it's like your classic war like romance story.
Yeah, but he was married to Ida. He almost dies, and then he's getting like this, healthcare treatment by nurse Maria, and boom, they have a baby, and that's Roque Dalton. That's how Roque Dalton was born, and since his conception, he was an exceptional person. You know those people who are just born to make history, or I don't know. He's just really freaking amazing. Roque was the son of a well-off father and a nurse. So he wasn't wealthy, AF, but he was good. He was like pretty good. He attended and graduated the Externado San Jose, which is a private Catholic school. El Salvador is like primarily Catholic everywhere, so it makes sense. This school is located in San Salvador. After he finished his studies in El Salvador, his father sent him to Santiago, Chile, and he studied in the Universidad de Chile. Here it is said that he took classes with Diego Rivera. Do you know who Diego Rivera is?
No.
So Diego Rivera is Frida Kahlo's partner.
Okay.
Life partner. So I was like, I freaking love history. So I was like, this is so freaking awesome. Like Roque Dalton and Diego Rivera in one class together. And this is also the time where like he was learning about the left. Okay. So the left and right. Just side comment, what is left and what is right? I did find this in a website that all this information, by the way, is gonna be linked somewhere in case y'all want to find it. But left wing is characterized, quote, left wing is characterized by ideas like freedom, equality, fraternity, rights, progress, reform, and internationalism, while the right wing is characterized by notions such as authority, hierarchy, order, duty, tradition, reaction, and nationalism. In other words, the left wing thinks homelessness is like people are victims of society. The right wing think no work ethic, like get up and work. It's a spectrum, I guess. Dalton was definitely left. During his upbringing, the government in El Salvador was really crazy, to say the least. A civil war broke out. The War of El Salvador was from 1979 to 1992. And Roque was born in 1935. So he kind of saw everything boiling up to the, explosion. So he was in the midst of the thinking, seeing the injustice, and he's a teen at this point. So imagine how, like, that's a perfect mixture of, like, someone who's super freaking passionate and wants to do better for his country. Besides all of that, he was also a phenomenal poet and writer. 1955, he's 20 years old, and Roque comes back and he opens a school along with another poet called Otto René Castillo. They both found the Círculo Literario Universitario. Isn't that crazy? Like at 20 years, he opens a school for other poets and writers. He was something else. Mm-hmm. And it has published some of the best Central American writers, literary figures. So it is said that Roque was like, I read this quote, bohemian lifestyle and jovial, irreverent personality reflected in his literary work, as well as his commitment to social causes in El Salvador. Honestly, I feel like he would have been my friend. I feel like we would have talked about the future of like the country, written poetry. Like, I think for his time, mind you, this is like the 60s, El Salvador, really Catholic country, very like traditional, very right-winged. He's just really pushing against it, you get me? I will say, one thing I did forget to mention is that his dad, Winnow Dalton, his ancestors are supposed to be from the Dalton gang. Have you heard of the Dalton gang?
No.
So, and I quote, the Dalton gang was a group of outlaws in the American Old West during 1890 and 1892. It was also known as the Dalton Brothers because 4 of its members were brothers. The gang specialized in bank and train robberies. End quote. So this was here in the US in the 1890. And then fast forward 1955, this man is like, he has that in his blood, And, his career just kept on flourishing. He was a writer. He eventually got married. I could not find when he got married. Before I go on to tell you about the first time he got exiled, I just want to kind of paint a picture of who this man was and talk about his wife. So, eventually, he gets married to Aida Canas. You know what's crazy? I might say crazy a lot, by the way. I feel like that's my thing. His dad, Winnow Dalton, first wife name was Aida. And then Winnow cheated on Aida with Dalton's mom. And then Dalton's now marrying Aida. Another Aida. Isn't that...
Oh, yeah. When you first said Aida, I was thinking the first Aida you said. But it's a different Aida.
Yeah, he met a brand new Aida in his time. That's just a coincidence, but Aida Canas de Dalton was his wife. So there is a documentary I watched, and there's a lot of information there. The documentary is by Tina Leish. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. The way she kind of set up the documentary was she went around. It was super casual, and she went around everybody that was in Dalton's life and kind of said, what's up with him? What did you live with him? So Aida very much looked like she was in love with Dalton. She was a ride or die. She's a ride or die. She's still writing for him now, and he's no longer with us. And yeah, so he wrote love poetry for her and all of that. They've were in some crazy things. Like, she described one time that they were laying down and the judicial, I don't know how to say that in English, in judicial, someone important came in with a gun and opened the door, and they took them. They were in their PJs, but they captured them, and they really instigated Dalton, saying that we know you know information, like you're a spy, blah blah blah. This was the right wing coming for Dalton. And they were framed. During this time, you couldn't listen to certain music and you couldn't read certain literature. You know, like they were really trying to keep you from thinking outside the box. That thing happened that I'm telling you about when they grabbed Ida and Dalton. They literally took books. They sat them down. They took books and placed them in front of them and took a picture. And then they released it in the newspaper and saying like, oh, like, look, they're definitely left wing. Like they're communists. Basically, they framed them. They were like, look, they're reading the stuff that we're not supposed to read, and we should exile them. Basically, that's what they were trying to do. So during this time, you know, he's married with Ida. Ida's a ride or die. But Dalton loves women. He is a womanizer. He's not a loyal one. He took after his dad. One thing that happened that I was speechless. Tina actually interviews Brenny Cuenca, which was one of Dalton's mistresses. Honestly, by the way that Brenny speaks, she's still in love with Dalton to this day. Dalton had gifted her like a book that he like wrote for her 15th birthday, and he was 23, and they met when she was 14. That's the one thing I was like, Dalton really did that. I don't even want to get into how I feel about that, but the way she does describe him, she kind of defends him. The way they met is that Brenny went to a recital with her dad after school. So she describes herself wearing like a Catholic girl uniform. After the recital, they were leaving. She saw a crowd of people, and in the middle, Dalton was in there. And the dad was like, oh, hold on, Brenny, like I want to go say hi to Mr. Dalton. And then she was like, quote, he caught my eye and I fell in love immediately, quote. She said after that they had intense communication. She explained like how people say that he was perverted for being with such a young girl, but she says that she always laughs at that because she loved him, and till this day she's like, I responded to everything that he said. And that was her first kiss and the person she lost her virginity to. She said that there was a lot of difficulties because she was young and he was married. So she said they would only see each other from like 6 to 8 p.m. Like that was their window of time. Maybe 9 p.m. she said. One more thing that I do want to talk is about his friend, Luis Dominguez Parada. His friend, and I quoted this in Spanish. So Tina and Luis go to a brothel, and he says, quote, todos los sábados nos emborrachábamos y nos íbamos a donde las por Ilopango, todos los sábados. He said, every Saturday we would get drunk and we would go see sex workers. To Ilopango is a place. So they would go to Ilopango every Saturday and go visit the sex workers every Saturday. Dalton was a free spirit. I'm sorry I don't really have like the exact dates for everything, but this was like, you know, his youth, 20s, 25. And mind you, while he was, you know, a womanizer, he was still like really preaching for like progressive ideas in El Salvador. So he got exiled a lot of times. I think he got exiled, I don't even want to quote it because I don't have the exact number, but one of his times he went to Havana, Cuba. Havana, Cuba is a place that gives hope. When I speak about Salvadorian history, I wish I could visit Cuba at that time. To Havana, Cuba, and he was welcomed in Casa de las Americas. Have you heard of Casa de las Americas?
Nope.
Casa de las Americas kind of translates to the House of the Americas. It does translate to that. And it was a, quote, an organization that was founded by Cuban government in April 1959, 4 months after the Cuban Revolution, for the purpose of developing and extending a social-cultural relations with the countries of Latin America, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world. So it was a hub of just people coming in from all different parts of Latin America, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world. There was a lot of these people were artists, were writers, poets, filmmakers. They really just wanted to see their world changed, right? Because at that point, if you went to Cuba, you kind of knew what was up. You had like certain ideas about the world. Dalton kind of made his second home Cuba. Cuba became his second home. He stayed there for 4 years, and he would travel under the radar to El Salvador and back. He stayed there with his wife, Aida, my loyal girl, and his kids. Dalton had 3 kids with his wife. He had Roque, Juan Jose, and Jorge. I believe one of his kids were killed or died during all this. Yeah, I don't know that part of the story, but 2 of his kids are living right now. By the end of his life, he had escaped Salvadorian jail 5 times.
Wow.
So, mind you, he's a hero, but I really just want to take this moment to imagine being married to a person like that. I'm at home with the kids. You're over here messing with this girl, this other girl. And not only that, you go to jail 5 times. I don't know when you're going to be exiled. The amount of frustration Aida must have felt.
When you say he escaped 5 times, you mean like legitimately like came over the plane and escaped?
Well, I don't know about the 5 times exactly what happened. Well, I don't know about the 4 other times. I know about 1 time. Mm-hmm. 1 time. Listen to this. He was awaiting his execution in Cojutepeque. It's a state, un departamento, a department in El Salvador. And while he was in his prison cell, he was waiting. He was like, dang, is this it? There was an earthquake, and the prison cell fell down. That was definitely God. I read two theories of this. So one said that there was an earthquake, he was able to escape, and he like blended in with a progression, I think, una procesión, a religious procession, and he met up with his people, and his people helped him get to safety. Mm-hmm. Another story was kind of the same thing, like earthquake, he escaped jail, then he was able to like find his way. So the difference is like one said he blended in with a procession, and the other one he just knew where to go. So yeah, this was when he was 27 years old. So during this time too, the CIA had threatened to kill him. I can see why he had to go to brothels. He had to like take away a lot of,
take the edge off.
Yeah. So there was a time when he was 34 when he got exiled again. Well, I don't know if you can get exiled multiple times, or I don't know if like once you get exiled you're like out. So I don't know if he kept getting exiled or he was just like getting thrown out after he got exiled the first time. Mm-hmm. But after that, after he got thrown out / exiled when he was 34, he went to Prague, which is the capital of the Czech Republic, and there he wrote his famous Taberna y otros lugares, as well as a biography of Miguel Marmol, the prominent Salvadorian communist. And I feel like as a Salvadorian, I was like, hey, he went to Czech Republic? I don't know, I just wish I knew where all my Salvadorian people went, because I just love learning when like we're just all over the world. But during this time, he was just kind of everywhere, living a crazy life. His son in the documentary by Tina gets choked up, and he does say the words of like along the lines of, he's a national hero, but like, I missed my dad, like he wasn't really there. So
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to like you don't want a national hero to be your family member, but it might be fun if you're it, or it's fun for other people to look back in your life and talk about it like I'm doing now. We're getting to like when he's about 36 years old. I want to mention his friend. Her name is Nina Serrano. She, at the time, she was in La Casa de las Americas as well, and she was a filmmaker. She was there with her family, and he was there with his family. And she had a lot of time, and so they would hang out. So she had her boys, he had his boys. They would go to the pool, they would chat and talk, and they grew a really good friendship. It was like a really beautiful friendship, honestly. And she was from California and he was from El Salvador, so I think that was just like a beautiful connection, because now we know there's a shitload of Salvadorians in California, but back then I think it was just like the wave was starting. So it's a really nice like connection point from like now and before. She tells him about Los Siete de la Raza, group of Salvadoran immigrant youth who were accused of killing a San Francisco policeman. And that is a story I will cover in a future video, because this is the first time I ever heard of it, and it sounds like it's worth exploring.
Mm-hmm.
And when Dalton heard about this, he asked her, when you go home, please work with them. And she did. At the end, I'm getting ahead of myself, but Roque hand wrote a letter for Nina, and when she opened it, it said that he was like in Vietnam doing something, but he actually wasn't in Vietnam, and he was already...
He killed himself?
No, he didn't kill himself. We'll get to that, but he was already not with us.
The way you said it, like he left her a letter and stuff.
Last word, like sentence of her, like thing, is, I still miss him. So they had a really great friendship, and I just love the way she spoke about him in her article, and I just really wanted to mention that now. Let's get into the beginning of the end. Dalton in 1970 was 36 years old, which my mom was born in 1972, so that gives you a little bit of perspective. This year, he was recognized in El Salvador as a left figure. So all the work he had done, you know, people were like, he's left, let's go get him, you're exiled. But in 1970, he was officially a left figure. Like the left, he was a household name, you know? Like you heard his name and you were like, we already know he's left. He said, and this is a quote from him, "Politics are taking at the risk of life, or else you don't talk about it." End quote. So he was a all in or nothing type of guy. Even though he escaped prison 5 times, he was a writer, he founded a school, he had 3 kids, all by the age of 36. 5 years after that, 1975, so he was 41. He wanted to be a soldier, and he wanted to like get in the war, right? So he wanted to be hands-on with the movement. No more just my opinion, no more just my writing. I want to be in it. That was his mentality. And so he got his training, and I think he got his training in Cuba. And when he was ready, he asked and this is how it's described, the Marxist-Leninist political military organization Farabundo Marti Nacional Liberación Front. So for short, FMNL. FMNL. It was a group formed during this time that was just pushing left. And so he really wanted to be part of this group. But the leader at the time, Marcial, said nope. He said, your role in the revolution is to be a poet. Of this, because of the rejection, he joined another group called the ERP, Ejército Revolucionario, Ejército Ejército Revolucionario del Pueblo. People's Revolutionary Army in English. So he did get in, and he was a member. And when he was a member, he really stressed the importance of working together with other organizations. And people did not fuck with this at all. He said he was trying to divide the group. They just didn't really like his ideas of what he was bringing.
Interesting. Sounds like familiar.
What do you mean?
Just like within like the nonprofit space, like so many of our friends are like movement people, and just thinking about collaboration with other organizations and how important it is.
Yes. What's that saying? Like, not all skin folk are kinfolk. What it means is just like, that's just because I'm blue and you're blue don't mean we get along. This kind of went to an extreme because ERP leader, his name was Joaquin Villalobos, and he worked along with other members like Jorge Melendez. So Villalobos allegedly ordered the assassination of Dalton, and Melendez allegedly ended Dalton's life. On May 10, 1975, 4 days before his 45th birthday, Roque Dalton was assassinated. He was shot in a house. They finally got him. It is said that some of his last words were don't shoot, like don't shoot me. This was extremely painful and controversial. Right wing would often use his death as a reason why not to be left. So they would be like, oh, if you're left like Dalton was, your other friends who are left will kill you. So they assassinate their own. Which is a slap in the face for Dalton's life. The saddest part of all of this is also that Dalton's body to this day was never recovered.
Wow.
So it's said that it's speculated that his body's somewhere in a mountain, but we don't have it. So the question is, what happened to Villalobos? Let me say their whole name so we know. What happened to Joaquin Villalobos or Jorge Melendez, which is allegedly his killers, but all the evidence leads to them being the killers. So like, people kind of know it was them. Well, nothing happened to them. His wife and kids, they have tried to get justice for Dalton, but no success. Besides getting like justice and like trying to get Villalobos and Melendez into prison, have asked, at least let me know like where my dad is buried. They have asked that and nothing. So these people are literally taking that to the grave, and it's just causing a lot of harm. So this is like till right now, even till this day. The first time they went to trial with them was in 2009, and the most recent time that they tried was in 2014, and still nothing.
And Ida has passed away, right? It's just his kids.
No, his wife Ida and his kids are still alive.
Oh, Ida is too?
Yeah, they're still alive and they're trying to get justice. Like, it's still not, like, Villalobos and Melendez, if you ever see this, it's still not late. Freaking write it, do something about it. Like, how can you live like that? Villalobos, he studied at Oxford after that, and he became the consultant on conflict resolutions. What's the irony there? Wow. Right? He served for governments in Colombia, Mexico, and Sri Lanka. And then for Melendez, he stayed in El Salvador. He became active in politics and still heads a small party allied with the FMLN. Was named head of Protection Civil, the government agency that responds to natural disasters. Villalobos and Melendez are thriving, unfortunately.
karma always comes around.
Yes, the closest they ever came to like saying something is one of them said you like the words youthful errors. Quite a weird ending, really sad. But Dalton did leave a huge legacy behind. His birthday is May 14, and now that is the National Día de la Poesía in El Salvador. So it's National Poetry Day, May 14th.
Oh, nice. That's incredible.
Yeah, every May 14th we can remember Dalton and his amazing career. Dalton's writings includes almost 15 poetry collections, a novel, a personal testimony, a play, as well as short stories, critiques, essays, both literature and politics, both on literature and politics. And his poetry has been translated to English, French, Czech, Russian, and Italian. Dalton has left like a huge, legacy behind. The way his friends speak about him is beyond. My camera died, so my voiceover will do. I also wanted to say this quote that he said one day, which was, "Cuando sepas que he muerto, no pronuncias mi nombre, porque se detendría la muerte y el reposo." Which translates to, when you learn that I've died, don't speak my name, because then death and peace would have to wait. Which is quite the opposite that I'm doing right now, but I had to tell his story because Dalton was all the above. He was a father, partner, he was a great poet, activist, and he was for the people. He was really for the people, and I do honor him and appreciate him. And as a Salvadorian, I think everyone should know who Roque Dalton is. Roque Antonio Dalton Garcia. All right, y'all. See you next time. Bye.